Today, Donald Trump nominated William Barr to be the next Attorney General of the United States. He was, of course, an Attorney General quite a while ago under former President George H.W. Bush. And so, look, there's interesting information that really comes in two categories that I'd like to talk about in this video. There's going to be why it is that Donald Trump chose William Barr, a guy who has got to qualify as an establishment figure. And he's supposed to be draining the swamp after all. So why did he actually choose him? And then what do we know about what sort of AG he might be based on what he did while he was AG the last time around? So we know a little bit about what he did in the interim. After the Bush administration, he spent most of his post-government career as the top lawyer for the telecommunications company that became Verizon, from which he retired in 2008. He later joined the Kirkland and Ellis law firm. There is some initial discussion online that I've seen about some of the activities between Verizon and the NSA that would have taken place during that time, that as their chief lawyer, he would have had to have been familiar with. So that is interesting. If you're worried about privacy, government, like intruding into your privacy, it looks like he might have an interesting history in that regard, but some of this is still in the early stages.
So in the beginning, it actually sounds pretty good when you just look at the beginning of his resume, and I'll tell you why. So he's establishment through and through. Now, do the Young Turks like the establishment and defend them? No, not remotely. But given the choice between like sane people who we fight against, their neoconservative and neoliberal policies, and the insanity and over-the-top personal corruption of Donald Trump,
right,
the establishment at least gives you a sense of some degree of sanity, right? Yeah. So Kirkland Ellis, establishment through and through, one of the top law firms in Washington, deeply connected to everybody else in Washington. Verizon, obviously a giant corporation.
This guy's not obviously a criminal.
Yeah.
So that's something.
Right. It's not like, hey, we found this thug off the street and but he says he's loyal to me, so I like that, right? Yeah. So, and working for George H.W. Bush, which we all, not us, but the mainstream media just went on this huge thing of like, oh, what a wonderful, kind, gentle, gentleman, wonderful person. We gave him more nuanced description. He did have positive sides and also negative sides. One of them was IranContra, which is going to relate to this in a second.
It is.
Yes, but once you get past that surface, oh boy.
Yeah.
It turns out, there's a very good reason why Donald Trump picked him. And as John tells you that, don't get too distracted by the fact that in our particular way that we have framed the shot, and it was unintentional, it appears that William Barr finds John delicious. Let's take a look at his one shot.
Oh my God. It's always hard to know which way to go. Okay, so I'm gonna try to keep a straight face as I tell you about his political history.
Just like, there he is, looming, looming.
Okay, so I've never felt more like a snack. Okay, so last night, the New York Times had a report out where we already thought that it might be William Barr at that point. The name had been floated, and apparently they had sources inside of the White House that had been in this process when his name was being floated, as well as multiple others. And apparently, one qualification kept coming up in the discussion while various names were being bandied about. In some of those conversations, Mr. Trump has also repeatedly asked whether the next pick would recuse himself from overseeing the special counsel investigation into whether his campaign conspired with Russia and its interference in the 2016 election. Mr. Sessions recused himself early in his tenure, souring his relationship with Mr. Trump, who wanted a loyalist managing the inquiry. So again, that wouldn't necessarily be at the top of your qualifications list if you were a truly innocent man who wasn't worried about what was going to be found, but an alternative hypothesis is that would be very important to you. And I don't know enough about William Barr to say whether or not there had been strong evidence of that. We're gonna go through some of it, but that apparently was at least on the mind of Donald Trump as he was considering him.
Yeah, all right, well, let's begin, okay?
You wanna get into some of the specifics of what he's talked about?
Yes, absolutely, because there's two different problems with William Barr. One is specific to policy. He is horrible on criminal justice reform, the war on drugs, etc. If you thought Sessions was bad, wait till you get a load of William Barr. It was a low bar, if you will, and he couldn't clear it. Yep, but as it relates to Trump, potentially even more disturbing. So
exactly.
It's a twofer.
So let's go through a little bit of this. Back in November 2017, Barr told the New York Times that there was actually more basis to investigate Hillary Clinton for the Uranium One deal than there is to investigate Trump for potential collusion with Russia. He went so far as to say the Justice Department was wrong to give Clinton a pass. And he also talked about how he doesn't find it particularly worrying for Donald Trump to be continually accusing his former political opponents of various crimes without evidence. So there he's echoing some right-wing conspiracy theories, as well as saying that Hillary Clinton, hypothetically, if he becomes the AG, could be investigated. He's not against it.
Yeah, having read a little bit more details of what he wrote, he writes it far more eloquently than Donald Trump does.
It's more nuanced.
Yeah. And it's a positive thing that it's more nuanced, but it's a slight negative that he could put a better veneer on it. Like Trump is too stupid to intellectualize arresting your political opponents. That's why you bring in William Barr, right? And he puts it in legal terms. And you go, well, I suppose, or you certainly don't think that, but enough Republican senators could think that to be able to justify it. It's a fig leaf.
And somewhat related to this investigation that he would be in charge of, in a Washington Post op-ed, Barr said Trump not only did nothing wrong in firing James Comey, but that he actually, quote, made the right call. And of course, at that point, he knew that Donald Trump had already revealed what was on his mind when he fired him. I mean, look, he says, like, if you just look at the qualifications, the ability of the president to choose who serves him, is it actually wrong for him to have fired him? And hypothetically, no, the president does get to decide, those sorts of things. But he is being investigated at that point, and he said to Lester Holt that it was this Russia thing that was on his mind. Once he said that, you can't pretend that this was a concern about his qualifications.
Right.
And that's what you bring William Barr in to do, pretend. Because does Barr really believe, remember the actual justification for firing Comey was that he was too hard on Hillary Clinton. That's what the memo that Rod Rosenstein wrote that Trump theoretically initially relied on. He said, well, I mean, he shouldn't have done that press conference announcing that Hillary Clinton had done terrible things, even though he was not going to recommend prosecution, because that's normally the Attorney General who would handle that and not the FBI Director, so he was out of bounds and that's why we're firing him. That is a technical reason why you could fire him, but no one on the planet actually believes that's why Trump fired him. And besides which, we're not having that conversation anymore because the knucklehead on national TV said, oh, I fired him because he was looking into me. Oh, yeah, about the Russia investigation. So, but Barr, with a straight face goes, yes, I think he was right to fire Comey. That's a dangerous guy.
Yeah. But we shouldn't be surprised that he's picked a right-wing tool to be the Attorney General, right? I mean, I'm trying to go through in my head what a case is that we would prefer.
No, but I'll tell you, it was surprisingly crafty. But this is it's a country of 330 million people. So I say like, Ted Cruz is a slimy guy and he's unbelievably unprincipled in how he takes donor money and pretends to be for freedom. I mean, we've gone through, but you know what? It's a big country. You could find a Ted Cruz. Right, and it turns out you could find the one guy who appears to have establishment credentials enough for Republican senators to confirm him, while actually being totally maniacally pro-Trump, pro-pardons, and as bad as Jeff Sessions on the actual policy. I mean, this guy is near perfect for Trump.
Well, and related to that, we should mention that with the Iran-Contra incident, he got involved with the special counsel investigation at that point that was looking into the pardons that were given, and he effectively stopped the prosecutor from having any teeth, basically, to do an investigation of those pardons.
Yeah, and so look, I want to talk about Iran-Contra just a little bit more, because I think that's maybe even a more important reason that Trump picked him than him saying, oh yeah, you should have fired Comey, you should look into Hillary Clinton, et cetera. He also said that he was right to fire Sally Yates from the Justice Department he would now lead. George H.W. Bush, during the Reagan administration, had participated in Iran-Contra. Let's keep it real, that's what happened, okay? He might have had other good parts to his tenure, but and that is where they sold weapons to Iran, okay, to the Ayatollah Khomeini, because they wanted to fund right-wing paramilitary groups in Latin America. I mean, it was a disaster. The negotiating with terrorists, selling them weapons, that's Reagan and Bush. So, and then they turned around and said, oh, the Democrats would like to do that. No, you guys did that. That's a fact, okay? Now, another guy that would participate in that and was critical in it was Reagan's defense secretary, Caspar Weinberger. So Bush H.W. Bush gets in office and he's like, should I pardon the people that were involved with me in the IranContra affair? And who does he bring in? He brings in William Barr. And William Barr says, why, of course you should. You should not only pardon Caspar Weinberger, but you should also pardon these 5 other guys so nobody ever catches any of you. So that's what William Barr is famous for.
Yeah.
And so if Donald Trump says, should I pardon people? William Barr is going to be like, ooh, I've got the answer. The answer is always yes. Now let's turn to the policy because man, William Barr is in a sense exactly what's wrong with Washington and the elite. He says for everyone else, lock him up, lock him up, lock him up. For the elite, pardon, never lock them up, no matter what crimes they committed. But for the rest of you, jail sentences. So he wanted to and did escalate the war on drugs back in the 1990s. He said, even though we have record-breaking imprisonment in this country, 2.1 million people, by far the worst rate per capita of any country in the world, he says we don't imprison people enough. He said that back in the 1990s. He recently wrote an op-ed saying it again, saying that we should imprison more people for low-level crimes like drug possession. So should we have arrested George W. Bush, who also did drugs, or Obama, or Clinton, or any of those? Because no, not my buddies that pay me money, okay? But you guys, you smoke a joint, and William Barr is going to come for you. He enthusiastically supported Sessions. He went further than Sessions. So he's going to take criminal justice reform terribly backwards, while at the same time shredding rule of law when it comes to the elites.
Yeah.
So I didn't know enough about William Barr before the selection, but every single thing that I have read so far seems to indicate he is the worst possible pick in the country for the Attorney General position, and hence why Trump picked him, the best one for Trump to further his corruption.
Can I give you a couple of the worst examples, at least from my point of view that I gathered? First of all, in 1992, he signed off on a book by the Department of Justice titled "The Case for More Incarceration." We should just have more of it.
Yeah.
And so on drugs, in 1992, asked about racial disparities in prisons by LA Times reporter Ronald Ostrow, he argued that, quote, our system is fair and does not treat people differently. And then he went on to defend laws that made prison sentences for crack cocaine much harsher than prison sentences for powder cocaine. So he knows full well that it's unfair by design, and he defended that while pretending that it didn't actually exist. He also, by the way, supported, if you're interested in a wall, Barr rolled out a multi-million-dollar plan to beef up security in the San Diego area where crossings were then concentrated. One component of that plan, building a steel fence with the assistance of the Department of Defense. So I guess he was ahead of the curve when it came to that stuff.
It's almost like he was invented in a laboratory specifically for Donald Trump.
I have one more.
Okay.
He hired more than 100 immigration and naturalization service investigators to go after, quote, criminal aliens involved in street gangs. We don't know if they're in Long Island, but yeah, he's very well suited to serve Donald Trump.
Like you said, there are 330 million people, right? Yeah, you get one.
Yeah, I don't know that he could have picked a better one for him, man. Well, last one for me. On the idea that there were victims of the criminal justice system that were wrongly imprisoned, he said that is simply a myth. Really, there's no one in prison that's unjustly imprisoned.
What?
No, we got it 100% right.
What are the people of the Innocence Project doing all day?
By the way, to be fair to William Barr, even he doesn't believe that, because he thought if you imprison the people who did the IranContra affair, then that would have been a terrible injustice, and that anyone who's in the executive branch who's committed crimes should, of course, go nowhere near prison. Like what you see? Click the subscribe button below, and don't forget to ring the bell to never miss another video from the Young Turks.